Welcome, food and fitness lovers, to Tina's Ageless Kitchen. I'm Chef Tina Martini. You might know me as the Medicine Chef. Welcome, food and fitness lovers, to Tina's Ageless Kitchen. I'm Chef Tina Martini. You might know me as the Medicine Chef. Now today it's barbecue, and I think that's just about everybody's favorite, no matter what your favorite type of barbecue, and we're going to talk about a lot of different ones today. We're going to find something that everyone will love. Now, what we're doing first of all is making a very different kind of barbecue sauce, and it's based on root beer. That's right, some chefs use Coke in their recipes. I've seen all different kinds of soda, even 7-Up used. So whatever you like, it's a sweetener just like anything else. Now today I'm using root beer, and I just love root beer. We've chosen an organic, naturally sweetened root beer, of course. And remember, guys, soda is a treat. It's really not something that we should be consuming every day. Carbonation, for one thing, is really hard on the joints. So I would suggest that we want to look at this more as a treat and possibly an ingredient in our recipes. Now I'm just going to take a sip. Delicious. And so you see that this actually is just regular root beer. But what I've done here, chefs, is I've taken an entire liter of root beer and reduced it down over time. Now, what is the technique of reduction, chefs? Well, of course, it's done over time and heat. And as you know, if you've seen me before, reduction is one of my favorite techniques. Now, what does reduction do? Well, as you can see, we've only got about a cup of root beer left here out of an entire liter. So this has taken about an hour to do, and you just put it on the high heat and let it boil down. The water leaves the ingredient, whatever we're reducing, and we can reduce wine, we can reduce stock. Any ingredient that we employ the technique of reduction with is going to concentrate and intensify the flavors, and that's what we're looking for here. So the way you're going to know that you're ready to build the rest of your barbecue sauce ingredients on your root beer syrup base is by taking a spoon, just like you would if you were making a custard. We're just going to dip that spoon in. Now, chefs, be really careful here, please, because you're going to find that this is like hot sugar lava. So you're just going to quickly take your finger through the spoon, and when your streak of your finger stays in the syrup, you know you're there. All right, let's go ahead and add our other ingredients. I've got just some ready-made ketchup of your choice, and that's going to add a little bit of that spike of tomato flavor, but it's also going to add a little bit of sweetness. We've got a little bit of yellow mustard, and that has turmeric in it, doesn't it? The bright yellow mustard. Now, if you prefer Dijon, you can do that as well. All right, I've got a little lemon juice. And again, I've turned the heat down a little bit. Let's make sure that we're on low here. That looks good. And then I've got some Worcestershire sauce. Now, what I'm using here is an organic brand of Worcestershire, or however you pronounce it. I know nobody really knows how to pronounce it. I'm using a vegan brand, and what that means is that there's no anchovies in the sauce at all. Now, for me, anytime that I can find a good vegan product that's as good as the conventional product, that's what I go with, because all of us can benefit by reducing the consumption of animal products. Let's go ahead and season up, chefs, because we're always adding a layer of flavor anytime we can, and we want to make sure that every layer is properly seasoned. It's really a shame when you get your beautiful food to the table and it still tastes bland after all your work. So make sure to use your salt and pepper. And we don't want to overdo on the salt, I realize, but it does help to lift the flavors. I've got a little Tabasco. Now, if your family doesn't like spice and heat, just omit this. It's not a problem. Or if you like a lot of heat, then you could certainly add some chili powder. You could add chopped jalapeno here. And I'll tell you another thing that's really great in barbecue sauce is fruit puree of your choice. So mango puree would be beautiful. Peaches work great in barbecue barbecue sauce. And again, it adds that savory and sweet balance that we all like in our barbecue sauce. I'm going to finish the sauce with a little bit of butter, but first let's add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Now, apple cider vinegar is really showing up to be great medicine with regard to high blood pressure as well as acid reflux. Now, I'm using the raw apple cider vinegar from the Bragg family, and they've really been the frontier pioneers of the naturopathic medicine movement. Remember that Bragg is made in the US and it's over 100 years old. So anytime you can support them, I would do that. They're a great company. All right, so let's just go ahead and stir this. Actually, I'm going to change over to a whisk, chefs. And we're just going to continue to cook that down while we sear our chicken. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of barbecue and how barbecue got started. The first barbecue in the US was in the Civil War, that far back. And the way barbecue got started was the soldiers needed to have something really hearty to eat, especially fighting in the winter time. So they wanted to eat something more meat-based. And pork was cheap then, and it was readily available. So they would have the guys that did the ammo for the soldiers' guns and the gun cleaners and that kind of thing also do the cooking of the food. Well, how could they do two jobs and make sure the soldiers got what they needed to keep warm in the winter? The way they would do that is they would have big cast iron cauldrons over the open fire, and they could put in big pork shoulder and big pieces of pork and put a little bit of ingredients that they may have, onions and such, and whatever ingredients they had to work with. And of course, we know at that time they didn't really have much to work with, but root vegetables they could get a hold of even in the winter. Now that pork would be allowed to cook with those other vegetables low and slow, and that's the way that barbecue is meant to be. There's a big difference between grilling and barbecuing, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. I'm heating up some grapeseed oil, and we're going to sear our chicken thighs on the bone, but let me just finish about our barbecue history. Now, the guys would let that pork go low and slow all day, and as the soldiers would come in, they could give the cooks their guns to get cleaned and get re-ammoed, and that way they could also sit down and enjoy a nice warm hearty meal. And that was the beginning of barbecue. All right, I've got some grapeseed oil in the pan. We're going to go ahead and salt and pepper our chicken. Now I'm showing you that we've got a skinless thigh and we've also got skin on. You're going to decide what's right for your family. If you want to cut the fat down, you may want to take the skin off. We don't want to cook the skin with the barbecue sauce and then pull it off. There goes all your flavor, right? So what I would suggest is making your decision first before you even prepare the chicken. If we're doing a breading or a sauce and we cook it with the skin on and then pull the skin off, well, that doesn't make any sense. There goes all your hard work and most of your flavor. So I'm going to prepare two different ways here, one with the skin on and one with the skin off. But chefs would say cooking with the skin on is going to make sure that that meat stays moist. Chicken dries out really quickly. That's another reason why I've selected bone in, and I'm using thighs today. I know a lot of people don't want to eat dark meat. They think it's full of fat. But remember, chefs, that dark meat is only 7% more fat and actually 27% more iron. So it doesn't really matter. It's more a personal taste. Now, in barbecue, there's two kinds of sauces. There's moppin' sauce and sloppin' sauce, and we're making a sloppin' sauce right here. Now, a mopping sauce is often applied as the meat cooks, and the sloppin' sauce, the red-based classic barbecue as we know it, is applied after or on the side. Now, every region has its own opinion, so it depends on what area of the country you're in. Kansas City says they've got the best, North Carolina says they've got the best, and of course, way down south in Alabama are some of the best pit masters in the world. All right, our grapeseed oil is nice and hot here, and remember, chefs, always keep your oil in your pans waiting for you. You don't want to be waiting for the pan. So again, we're going to do two different preparations here. We're going to do skin on and skin off. Make sure you're not overcrowding your pan. That is a real problem with trying to get level cooking. That one's fighting with me a little bit. That's all right. So we'll just do 3 at a time. Now I've got a rack on a sheet pan, and that's how we're gonna finish our chicken. And I also think that's a great handy hint that a lot of home cooks don't realize is chefs will quickly sear meat on the stove top and then finish it in the oven. That way the skin stays crispy or the sear stays crispy and the meat stays moist inside. And that's always a good technique to employ with any meat that you might be doing. All right, our sauce is really thickened up and it's a beautiful color. The aroma is just fabulous. I'm gonna let that go just a little bit longer and we're gonna finish up searing our chicken here. Now remember to season both sides of your meat. And we're back to why we're on the bone and the fat content. So you'll find that most chefs like to do meat on the bone. A chicken breast that's been deboned, well, it can dry out really quickly and it's really quite flavorless in general when we're talking about ingredients. So if you can do the dark meat, I really highly would suggest that. All right, our sauce is finished and we're ready to dip our chicken and finish it in the oven. We've got a good hard sear on here. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the fire on that. Let's see how our chickens are doing. If it sticks a little bit, chefs, don't worry about it. Just work with it. There we go. Oh boy, look how crispy that skin is. And then this is the skinless one that we did before. I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. We'll get this to the back. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of our sauce in this bowl. Now be careful, chefs, you're working with screaming hot liquid here, so we really wanna be careful. Remember, this is a slopping sauce, and this is for afterward, so we wanna save some to put it on the side so our family can dip and really have as much sauce as they like. All right, let's go ahead and kill the fire here. I'm gonna bring my pan over, and you'll see how I have it set up here. I've put a rack on top of a sheet pan, and that's gonna make sure that the heat goes all the way around the meat, cooking evenly and giving us a nice gloss. Now I'm gonna put some butter in the sauce over here, and that's gonna give us a nice glossy finish for our table presentation. Now it's really a good idea to make sure the butter is cold because you get that chemical reaction of cold going into hot, and it really does give that gloss to the sauce without adding a lot of sugar or extra corn syrup or anything like that, like some of the manufacturers do. Okay, so we've whisked that in and we're gonna hold that to the side for service. We're gonna dip our chicken right in here, and then remember, we're gonna finish cooking in the oven. Oh boy, doesn't that look pretty? And the aroma is fantastic. So let's go ahead and put that right on the rack and shake off a little bit of the excess. You don't wanna waste your sauce, but we do wanna coat it evenly. I'm just gonna use this spoon. It won't hurt that there's a little bit of mustard. This just looks absolutely gorgeous. All right, and then we'll put that right on the rack. Perfect. All right, so let's finish up our last little piece here. I'm just gonna dip it in the sauce and get it nice and thoroughly coated. We wanna have that beautiful look when we pull the chicken out of the oven. All right, come here, you. There we go. All right, so our chicken is completely sauced. It's on the rack and our oven's waiting for us. It's 375. We want to get that oven nice and hot and keep that chicken crispy on the outside and moist and tender on the inside. When we come back, we're going to put together another type of barbecue sauce that's probably a little more familiar, and we'll make baked beans out of that. All right, everybody, we're back, and that beautiful root beer barbecue chicken is working in the oven. Now remember, when your chicken and your meat is on the bone, it's gonna take just a little longer, so make sure you give it plenty of time in the oven. It's still gonna taste nice and juicy, but it needs just a little bit more time. All right, so I've got some butter melted here. I'm gonna add some onion, and of course, onion contains quercetin, and quercetin helps to regulate the blood sugar, it helps to strengthen the pancreas, and it mends damaged tissue throughout the body. It also helps build the immune system so much that NASA even uses it with their astronauts. All right, so we're just gonna soften this up. Let me get a little bit more heat going here, chefs, but we don't want too much because we're just gonna soften the onions and garlic, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the garlic in as well. Now, garlic, really great defense against bacteria and virus, and these allium compounds seem to be showing up more and more in research, which is great news because onions and garlic go great in just about everything. Now, again, all we're going to do is sweat this and get it soft. So try to keep it under control. Don't let it go too far. If you get dark bits of your garlic, you really need to try to pick those out because it can put bitterness in your recipe. Let's see how we're doing here. Just get in the pan there and stir it all around and coat it with the delicious butter. Now I'm going to go ahead and season the onions like you've seen me do 100 times because we don't want the food to taste bland at all. A little bit of cracked black pepper and some salt. What we're making here is a bourbon molasses baked beans. And I think everybody considers baked beans a great comfort food. And just about every family has their own secret recipe. So I'm going to share mine with you right now. All right, so just softening this, and that looks good. You don't really need to take it all the way because it is going to cook a little bit in the sauce. Now, chefs, just for safety, we're going to take the pan off of the fire and we're going to add some sour mash bourbon. Now, remember, alcohol is a firebomb waiting to happen. So I need you to be really careful here and use caution. It's not the alcohol that catches fire per se or the liquid, it's the fumes. So make sure that you're either taking it off of the fire and moving away or just killing the fire while you pour the booze in, whatever you're using. So we flame that up just a little bit and woo, there we go. Don't be afraid, the alcohol will burn off and you'll be perfectly safe. Just keep it under control. All right, so the onions are nice and soft and I'm getting that aroma of the sour mash bourbon. And we're going to build from there. All right, this looks good and it's reduced and we've burned all the alcohol off, so let's go ahead with our other ingredients. Now, you saw me add prepared ketchup to the other sauce, and I'm going to do that here as well. It just gives a little sweetness and a little bit of zing with the tomato. We talk about lycopene all the time, and lycopene, of course, in our ketchup here. Prostate medicine and heart protective, but the big news here with lycopene is the reduction of sun damage by 40%. All right, let's go ahead and add a little maple syrup, and of course use pure maple syrup. And I've got a secret ingredient back here, and that's the molasses. Now, molasses is a great source of iron, particularly for anyone that's practicing a vegan or a vegetarian nutrition plan. This way, you're getting a good quality source of iron to help those red blood cells move out. And we're talking about baked beans today. I'm just going to whisk this together. And I've got two kinds of beans. I'm just using canned today, and there's nothing wrong with that, chefs. So I've rinsed a can of kidney beans. Now, the School of Medicine in Kentucky tells us that red kidney beans are one of the highest in antioxidant power. And of course, antioxidants slow the aging process, which is one of our goals here in the Ageless kitchen. All right, I'm going to take it off the fire for just a minute. We don't want any of that sugar to burn. I'm going to add some chipotle. And all that is a smoked jalapeno. And I'm using a little bit of that adobo sauce that the chipotles come in. I've got a little bit of Dijon mustard here. And I'm sure you're seeing the ingredients kind of snake their way through both recipes. Basically, barbecue sauce is barbecue sauce, and there's some key ingredients that you'll always see, like ketchup or tomato puree, vinegar, and some kind of sweetener. Let's go ahead and take our heat down here now, because again, we've got sugars going in. All right, so we've added two kinds of sweeteners here with the maple syrup and the molasses. So I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit and slow the pan down. So what that means is that we're on a low heat, and that gives us a slow pan that we can control that cooking and continue to reduce and intensify the flavors without burning the sugar. All right, I'm going to put in a little bit of balsamic vinegar and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. We're going to finish it with lemon juice. So you can see the whole formula here, chefs. It's sweet and savory, and that gives us that classic barbecue. All right, let's just go ahead and stir all that, and we're going to let that cook a little bit. We've already reduced the bourbon, and so that's looking really glossy and great. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our beans here. So we already talked about the kidney beans. I also have pinto beans here, but red, azuki beans, whatever beans that you like would work perfectly. Now, again, I've rinsed them. And a handy hint here, chefs, it's also a tasty tip because it makes things taste fresher. When you're using a canned ingredient, just fill a bowl with some ice water, put the beans in a colander and dip it down in that ice water and rinse it a couple times. That tightens up the protein. It gives a nice firm texture on the palate, and it also takes away that canned flavor. All right, I've got a cast iron baking dish here, and it's already been sprayed with pan spray, whatever you like. We're going to mix our sauce into the beans, and I thought it would be nice to top our baked beans with some crispy onions. Now, a lot of the conventional crispy onions contain BHA and BHT, and those are two pretty nasty preservatives. So I want to stay away from that and choose a more shall we say, organic brand. And they are available now in your health food stores. So that's good news because I think we can all think of a classic green bean recipe that employs the crispy onions. And of course, if we can give the things our family loves without all of the preservatives, it's better for all of us. So this is going to top our beans. All right, the sauce is finished here. And I'm just going to scrape all that nice glazy texture off of the side. Now be careful, you're working with hot sugar. So we're just going to pour that over the beans, and oh boy, doesn't that look great. Yummy. Smells great. We've got the blend of sweet and savory. And I'm just going to let the beans sit there. Now let's go back to talking about the health benefits of the beans. Our beans contain something called soluble fiber. And what that does is it regulates the pancreas. Now the pancreas is responsible for secreting insulin. Insulin is a hormone that can make us fat around the middle. I'm just going to scrape all that goodness right into our baking dish. Now, you hear about belly fat a lot in the news, and people seem to be really obsessed with it. Now, regulating the pancreas is a real key in getting our body to burn all of that excess body fat and help us to be those lean machines that we like. Now, the pancreatic insulin that's secreted really can become overabundant in the body. So any of the foods like oats, I'm sure you've heard of oats and steel cut oats, reducing cholesterol. Well, the beans help us do the same thing. All right, so I've got our sauce and our beans in, and of course you could do black beans here. I'm going to top the whole thing with our organic prepared crispy onions, which make our life easier. And we're going to put it all in the oven, check on our chicken, and we'll be back to finish it all up. All right, welcome back, chefs. And as you can see, the star of the show has already taken center stage on the plate, looking glossy and beautiful. Our beans are bubbly and nice around the edge, and that's what we're looking for. Now, remember, I started to talk about the maple syrup and how people think it has no nutritional value. Maple syrup is very high in iron, as is molasses. So as you can see, even though we have these sweet barbecue sauces, we have used a more easily digestible and usable type of sweeteners. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our beans, and oh my goodness, that really looks terrific. And I'm just going to put a little bit right here on the plate so you can see how that sauce thickens up and it glosses over the beans beautifully. Pancreatic balancing, liver cleansing, and of course a great source of protein if your family doesn't wish to consume meat. All right, well that's it for this week in the Ageless Kitchen. I've really enjoyed taking it low and slow with you. And remember, next time we'll do something hot and fast. I'm Chef Tina Martini. Here's to your health.